All right, welcome back to another episode of Career Candour, where we talk to people who actually have careers worth talking about. And today I've got a guy who's done everything, and I mean everything. We've got Johnny Widodo in the house, ex-engineer, ex-consultant, ex-FinTech pioneer, ex-automotive CEO, and now he's running a FinTech lending company. Basically, if an industry exists, this guy has probably been in a boardroom there. He's also the vice chairman of AFPI, meaning he's helping shape the future of fintech in Indonesia. And on the side, he casually competes as a strongman because apparently running companies wasn't intense enough. So today, we're talking career switches, startup chaos, fintechs versus banks, crypto hype, and whether being able to deadlift the car makes you a better CEO. It's going to be fun. Let's get into it, Johnny Widodo. Welcome to Career Candour.
Thank you, Lee, for having me here today. It's too much introductions.
I mean, let's kick on, Johnny. Let's get to the conversation that I know people are dying to hear. So what I want to do first is address the elephant in the room, or rather the massive weights that you lift. How did you get started with strength training?
Actually, I started off since the 2000 back in Singapore. I competed there, but it stops because of all the busyness. And then in the recent years, I figured that there's a strongman community in Indonesia. So I joined them and I start to compete again. So that is actually after the COVID, when I feel that there's too much time at home. Then I set up my own gym and like getting stronger and compete. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what feels easier, business negotiations or deadlifting more than your body weight?
Oh, it's different. Deadlifting is definitely easier because a lot of things are within your control.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about training before, and I'm a huge believer in the connection between physical performance and mental clarity.
Yeah.
So on a more serious note, how does strength training help with leadership?
I think in many ways it helps a lot, right? In strength training, you have to be disciplined, right? So if you are not disciplined, you skip 1 month, I think all your ability to carry the weight probably drop like at least 20%, right? So I have not seen any successful person who became a leader who is not disciplined. So you just have to be disciplined, right? So motivation brings you somewhere, but discipline is another story. When you lift weight also, you easily measures your progress. So this month you can deadlift, say 150. Next month you do 152.5. The month after you do 155. It's a very measurable. Again, I think in leadership it's the same thing, right? You need to have all that measurables, goals, measurables, performance. And I think another one would be again, it teaches you that nothing is instant, right? Today you can lift 150 deadlift. Doesn't mean that a week after you can do 200. No such thing, right? If it is a true progress, through hard work, through dedications, through fixing your techniques, listening to people, talk to different, understand your own body, when you can lift, when you cannot lift. Again, in the principle of leadership, I think it's very similar, right? So nothing is instant, right? Everything has to go through process. Unfortunately, a lot of people always see the end results rather than the process itself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Why I started lifting back in 2016, it was something that was measurable. It was something where, regardless of what was going to happen in my day and the volatility that we often face when working, when dealing with investors, when dealing with business and people in general, the beautiful thing about lifting was that it was, the metrics were there. You had sole accountability. Nobody could take it away from you. And every morning, regardless of how your day goes, you feel like you've accomplished something. So for me, that was a real driver in getting into that space. So, I mean, another thing that you do when you're not involved in strongman and training is that you're also the president for the NTU Alumni Association here in Indonesia. And what's striking to me about NTU is compared to when I moved out to Singapore in 2009, I've just seen NTU progress year after year in terms of the global university rankings to a top global university now. But I'm curious, I have to ask the controversial question, and that is, being president of the NTU Alumni Association in Indonesia, is it just an excuse to throw big parties with smart people?
Not really, because I mean, to tell you a little bit of story, right? So before I became the president, people don't even know there's an alumni network, and I feel that I see that many of the other universities, even local universities, they have a very strong network, and they have the belonging. So I feel that being an alumni is like wearing uniform, right? So if you go into a ballroom, there are like 10,000 people. You don't know anyone, but if you see somebody wearing the same uniform with you, you will approach the person and you'll start talking to that person because there's some common themes, right? So I feel that I just want to contribute back to the university because it's also aligned with my thinking on contributing back to the society in the line of education. So that's why I say, okay, let me try to compete for that position, and I mean, lucky enough, I get elected. Yeah.
I mean, you've built a huge network there. I've seen a few of the events advertised or announced on LinkedIn. How important is alumni networking for career growth, in your opinion?
I think it's part of the puzzles in growing, because the thing that with our networking is not something that is instant. You need to build, you need to meet regularly, you need to build that level of trust. People to get to know each other well, and sometimes it's not instant, but definitely it helps. Yeah.
Understood. And if you were to give advice to maybe new alumni, people that are joining or thinking of joining, what's the best way to stand out in an alumni association and actually get something meaningful out of it?
So, from my point of view, just be yourself. And then just make sure you talk to different people that you don't know before. Of course, the tendency is you will always want to talk to somebody who you know, or within your batch, right? That is like more like a reunion kind of thing. But I think the beauty is really you need to speak to different people and understand and have that genuine curiosity on what people are doing, because sometimes it's not directly relevant, but I just feel that when I speak, one of my way of learning would be to speak to different people and understand what they're doing, right? So, and I mean, just recently I met one of the guy who is the VP for the associations in Malaysia. He was here for some kind of a conference, right? And I spoke to him and all that. Then I found, hey, it's very interesting, right? The guy is actually doing a lot of the infrastructures for Indonesia. And that has nothing to do with me, right? But I mean, I'm not even in the space not even close enough in that space. But then the more you talk, then he say, oh, I know this guy, I know that guy. I'm actually the advisory of this guy, that guy. I was like, wow, this guy is super well connected.
Yeah. And how do you spot a fellow NTU alumni? Is there a secret handshake or anything like that?
No, it's very open, very open. Well,
I know one thing, people that are watching this, you've got everything from established leaders here that will be watching the podcast today, and we have young students coming through who all have education at front of mind. Being the president of the Alumni Association for NTU here, if you had to pitch NTU to a young, ambitious student in Indonesia, how would you sell it?
Probably number one, I'll say, look, if you want to have a top university that is close to your home, because most of the people, when they go to university, their parents also quite old, yeah. And then so that's one thing that I think that is a pitch, right? That if suddenly your parents fell sick, you are just an hour away, to fly back, right? So that's one. Second, I say this is one of the places where actually you will be exposed into three different cultures, right? Because you will see your own culture, which is your Indonesian culture, but at the same time there will be some Chinese culture, and this is probably one of the places where there are so many expats other than Dubai. So for obviously two reasons. One is the language, second is the tax, right? So it's a place where you will see different type of people. Maybe Hong Kong also another one, but Hong Kong language a little bit an issue there, right? So the third one, I would say that it's also a unique place where you have engineering school, actually, right? It's NTU is a Nanyang Technological University, but yet they set up the MBA school, they set up the business school, and able to rank top in the region. So, I mean, again, it's a best of the both world where you can get into. So,
Yeah,
that's probably what I'm, and it's also not expensive as US or whatever, right? So,
yeah. I think that's a great point then to transition into the next line of questioning, Johnny, which is looking at your own career and how you started. So you started as a semiconductor engineer, and now you're leading fintech and automotive businesses. Was this a carefully calculated career move, or did you just keep saying yes to things until you became a CEO?
I would say it's a semi-calculated. It's not really fully calculated, but it's more on building ambitions and understand where your gaps are. Speak to the people who you think could be your mentor. Try to fill that gap and have that daring move here, because in the work life, right, especially where people get more and more senior, typically there are 2-3 things that they are afraid of, right? So one, when they need to jump into a new place where the industry is totally different. So that makes you feel uncomfortable. That's number one. Number two, if let's say you are the number 2% and there's the number one guy, when the number one guy moves to another company, normally you will follow. A lot of all these guys also always become the sergeant instead of the general, right? So he's a sergeant of somebody, right? And I would say the third one that is a lot of times when people move, they need to bring the whole train, right, with them, right? Which is again because they don't feel comfortable coming into a place where they don't have any supporting structures. So I think I mean, if you overcome those things, it's a risk, but I think you should take that risk.
And you were able then to take that experience and transition it into consulting. And that's, I think, a path that a lot of engineers might be curious about, but don't really know how to make the leap into that industry. So I'm curious, what made you switch from engineering to K&E, and what was the biggest shock moving from R&D to boardroom strategy?
Yeah. So spent 7 years, right, in engineering, excluding my school. So if you include my school, it's probably like about 13 years or so, yeah. Or even 15 years, right? Because there are 2 years where I studied science in my high school. So the brain has been locked by saying that, hey, science, engineering students are smarter. We are better than the social or economy guys, and if you can go to the science and engineering, you shouldn't settle with the second one, right? That being said, I excel pretty well actually as an engineer. So I was the youngest principal engineers promoted of 6,000 over people. I was having like 35 patents, 20 over publication, conference journal, all the science, international science, and I was still below 30 at the time. The thing is that, and I spent already about 3 years in US. So I was the youngest engineer actually that was sent as an expatriate in US, New York back then. So, but the thing is that when I start to do things and all that, I start to realize that this is not what I want, because I feel that I can, because I'm supporting the manufacturing, right? So whenever that there's a problem, my associate engineers will call me and all that and ask me. And back then, there's still a pager, by the way. So I have to call back. And I, that I can even imagine how the machine look like in terms of the interface step by step when I'm still half conscious, waking up, and then I'm already at that level, right? So I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? So then the next question that I see all my bosses, right? I see my director, I see my VPs, I see my senior VPs. Then I ask myself again, right? Do I want to be like them? I look at their age, right? They're probably in the 50s, some of them in the 60s, right? Because Singapore, you can work longer. Then I ask, I'm like 20 something, okay, do I want to lead this life for the next 20, 30 years, right? And the answer is obvious. It's no. Then I start to say, okay, there are only two things that you could do, right? One, either you change your internal, or two, you change your external. And super hard to change the external because you don't have any other skill set, right? There isn't many industries that are forgiving enough to tell you that, okay, you come in and you start at that level instead of going back to square zero. So then I look at a few options back then, right? Even I was looking at the doctorate, I don't know, as a medical doctor, IP lawyer, financial engineering back then. I realized that, hey, actually the easiest one to make a switch is MBA. Makes more sense. So I took an MBA. And then throughout that a year, 2 years, I started to realize, okay, the next path has to go to either investment banker or consulting. Those are the two places where they are forgiving enough on your experience. Because by that time, I was already 30 plus, early 30s, right? They are forgiving enough. They don't punish you because of you start off as an engineer in the earlier stage, whatever. And I'm lucky enough to get into that. That's when I start to have my career switch.
Understood. And if you had to maybe pull one lesson from your time at Kearney that still helps you today as a CEO, what would that one lesson be?
I would say two, maybe. I think if I were to put it two. One, is really helps me on my structuring my thinking. So many times I notice when I work with people, they're smart, but very random. And trying to fix a lot of things, at the same time. On the other hand, as a consultant, you are trained to think very structured, box all the problem and trying to solve the problem one by one, right? That's when you take the whole story. So that's one. And second, I think it teaches you to be humble. Because, the moment you go into consulting, for example, myself, right? I'm not trying to be arrogant in this podcast, right? But I've been topping the class, right? High school. University, I topped the class, right? It's basically you have been a top student. Everybody has been patting your back, saying like, dude, you are like amazing, right? You are like so smart, whatever. Even in the semiconductor industry, right? I'm topping the class, right? The youngest engineer who sent overseas to US. Other people do probation 6 months. I do probation 4 months, right? So it's just, you're just always like, at that top cliff, right? The moment you go to consulting, right, boom, then suddenly you realize that, hell, maybe back then you were doing at the district level, now is Olympic, man. So
Yeah.
suddenly you have like another 1,000, similar to Johnny, coming from all over the world, yeah. Then that's one. And second, because I came from the engineering background, right? Then the mindset has to switch, right? And that's super hard, yeah. The moment when you have been thinking the way you think for like more than 10 years, then suddenly in your project, you are expected to think differently. Well, that's super hard, man. And they give you feedback every after your project, right? So that really humbled me a lot. Really like telling you that, hey, dude, you bomb your project, you're good in this, but then you screw up in this. When you look back and you say, damn, I only slept like 3 hours a day for like the whole project, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that second point as well. The reason I joined Korn Ferry was that I felt I ticked many or most of the boxes, working in various firms and executive search and consulting in that human capital space. But then when I joined Korn Ferry, I'm having calls with people around the world, and you look at their resume, their CV, and it puts things in perspective. So look, there's one area that consultants often get a bit of negative rep about, and that is their role more as advisors and less as executors. So you've done both. You've gone from that side to being a CEO.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part about moving from that advisor situation to more of a decision maker?
I think you hit the point. You nailed the thing, right? So as an advisor, the most you do is you do a PMO role. So it's still like the client do all the work, then you're like just managing the project, right? Although I think recently there has been a lot of commercial agreement with the consultant where you are paid based on that incremental profit, right, or whatever implementations, right? I think a lot of consultants are trying, the consulting firm trying to do that commercial proposals with the client, right? Because of the competitiveness in the market. So, but spot on, right? So basically, after consulting, I moved still as a strategic role in Pokpan, Charon Pokpan. Then after that, we enter into the digital world, right? Which is OVO. That's when the operations really comes in, right? That's when you really break the whole barriers and then building stuff, go to the ground, meet people. Even I myself giving out flyers, in front of the shopping malls, right, and all that, right? And really, because you need to know, right? You need to know if let's say I need to upgrade somebody from basic OVO to OVO Premier, how long does it take? What is the problem? If let's say somebody want to do a top up with your EDC, what's the problem, right? You need to know all this, and you need to experience it all yourself before you tell your team to do it, right? So, how difficult it is to educate the people to sell the ideas, or hey, just put the money with me. You can do a payment with the QR, whatever. So that really teach you a lot of all that operation stuff. And if you ask, I think again, you need to be humble enough, right? You don't bring the whole historical thinking that you have, and you say, okay, I come in, I bulldoze everything, follow my way. No such thing, right? So you got to be able to use your historical, look at the situations, humbling yourself, asking the team, okay, give me the one question, one training courses on all this, right? And after you start to understand the business, and you start to able to build that puzzle in at least 60%, right? Then you start to feel, okay, this is the next step that makes sense,
Yeah, because you helped build OVO in the super early days. I mean, what was FinTech like before it was cool? I mean, were there moments where people just didn't get it, or did you always know this industry was going to explode?
Back then, if I were to hire somebody, I need to spend 30 minutes to uh, convince why they have to join us, but to explain what are we doing. And I don't even know whether the person will understand or not back then, right? And then another 30 minutes to convince you have to join us. And after that, I ask, what are you doing? So that's how difficult to convince the future employee. I'm not talking about the merchant, right? The merchant will tell you, like, hey, what is this, right? Why do I have to do this? It's a complicated, technical, blah, 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 and all that, right?
Yeah.
It took a lot of effort, money, a lot of sweat, basically, to make it happen, right? And technology and all that, right? But fast forward, you look at it, right? 10 years down the now, I'm super happy, actually. Sometimes if I go to the mall, they have that kind of food bazaar, right? Then everybody use QRIS, right? I was like,
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
So if you ask back then, how difficult is that? Back then, I'm not sure if you remember, but that's when Gojek, Grab, and Uber every day has discount. They fight. If one guy gave 5,000 discount, tomorrow the other guy gives 7,000. The next day the other guy gives 10,000. That's when actually Gojek and Uber are killing each other on the toll road. That's exactly the time, right? I still recall, right? And it's super hard, lah, to tell people this is what you should do, right? So if you ask me again, do I know that's going to make it big one day? No clue, man.
Yeah. It was.
No clue.
It was.
That's the honest answer.
I hear you, and I couldn't agree more. I was here back at that time as well. It was around 2016, and I recall being at Fitness First in Grand Indonesia, and I was trying to get back to my apartment from there, and the Bluebird drivers had basically started a protest all along Sudirman, so you literally couldn't go anywhere. There was debates at the time about whether it should be regulated by the transportation industry, whether it should go under the communications industry because it's a tech platform. And
Correct.
Yeah, I think back to speaking to people, and it sounds funny talking about it now, but trying to convince people that these companies had a future, because with all the uncertainty around the regulations, seeing these scenarios unfold, I mean, now people are queuing up, or have been queuing up in recent years, to join Grab, to join Gojek. But there's people that we spoke to who were just dismissive at the time, and I think looking back, they're probably like, well, crap, I wish I would have joined, because getting in early, taking that risk, it's been a game changer for some people in terms of lifestyle, financial stability, and just the flexibility to pursue passions as opposed to purely career based on needs. But yeah, I mean, fintech, I mean, that's really come forward. I mean, if you were to summarize what's happening in the fintech world right now, Johnny, where do you see fintech right now?
I think FinTech 2.0 is in a very difficult time now. With all the regulations coming from that making it to be tighter. I think we feel that regulations is a little bit like a bank, where we cannot perform like a bank, right? So it's tough. It's there goes the era of I would say euphoria of having 100, 200, 300% of our interest rate, right, for like 2-3 months, or even 1 month loan or 2 weeks loan, right? And then there goes the era that you don't even need to do credit checking. You just anyhow give and do mathematical statistics. Hopefully the guy will pay back, and do kind of like continuously statistically trying to improve the good guy versus the bad guy, right? Or a bad borrower. I mean, there goes the time now. It's already gone, right? So
Yeah.
now I think if you really want to be successful in this business, you just have to be super efficient. Because everything is expensive. You check Tuk Capil, you have to pay. You check Pepindo, you have to pay. Everything you just have to pay, right? Everything money. Then your economic benefit are limited. Then now people cost super high, right? Yeah, I mean, right? You have been writing a lot of articles about this, right? So in Indonesia, although it seems like, oh yeah, we are a developing country compared to Singapore, dude, the salary is not lower yet. It's it's super high, right? So
Yeah.
It's tough. You just have to be very operationally efficient, and you just have to be very good in assessing the credit worthiness to ensure that your NPL is not that bad.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it in the 2.0.
Yeah. Do you think banks are scared of fintech, or are they quite happy to watch from the sidelines and let fintech do all the innovation?
I think for now, if you define the fintech as those that are building all the digital bank, right? They also built that. I mean, BCA has Blue, Mandiri has Living, BRI has Brimo. Everybody has, right? CIB has the auto clicks. Though if you talk, I don't. Again, the moment they built, what's stopping people to come in, right? The second, if you talk about the lending, actually they have been utilizing peer-to-peer lending as their channeling, right? So the back lender is actually the bank. The front face is actually the fintech itself, right? The peer-to-peer lending, right? So from my point of view, at the end of the day, they are still quite comfortable with where they are now. I don't think they are thinking of, oh, this is going to take over the world or whatever. No.
Yeah. I think one area where fintech has done really well is, and where it's rightly praised, is that it has brought financial services to underserved communities in Indonesia. I mean,
That's true.
Is there one fintech innovation that you think is really making a difference for everyday Indonesians?
I mean, for now, if you look at it, it's either it's an ecosystem itself, right? You put money and then you take out the money for lending, right? And to help the Indonesian now, a lot of times, it's actually on the second portion that is more important, which is the lending part. So I think I worked in Charun Pokpan before also, and I've seen how this shrimp farmer actually live, right? If you don't give them lending to really grow the pond, right? The shrimp pond, you will not have that shrimp. Because they don't have money to buy the feed. They don't have money to buy the shrimp fry, all the probiotics and all that. It's expensive. Startup cost, right? So the capital. But again, I have that benefit of really seeing it myself when I was not in the fintech business. So then I start to say, okay, that makes sense to do this, right? However, having said that, I think the execution is critical. Again, coming back to how prudent you are in your risk, how to make sure that you do your credit worthiness well, etc., etc.
Yeah.
To make sure that you don't have all that collapse that is happening now, right? So
yeah, I think at the moment fintech here is in a bit of a transitory stage. I'm optimistic that the future's positive. I think we've gone too far down that path and it's become too ingrained in everyday life for it just to disappear completely or be fully swallowed up by the banks. So if we're looking to the future, Johnny, what are 3 fintech trends that people should be watching?
I think 2.0 probably hot there. I would say it's more on the 3.0 now, right? So that will be evolving in the blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, right? So I think if I'm looking at the overall adoption in the global crypto, it's still single digit, 7%. So the opportunity is huge, right? So how can actually you build more use cases in this space? Because I mean, if I reflect back, 2011 is when all this e-commerce started, and ride hailing. So somebody like Gojek, Tokopedia, and all that, right? And that became our daily use, and we are so used to it. Probably takes like 10, 15 years, yeah, plus minus, right? So again, if I reflect back, payment, when I together with the team started off back in 2015, there was no name of OVO. We are just saying like, okay, let's build this thing, that thing, whatever, you know. And it took again another 10 years at least to this product to fly. And like, okay, people start to use it. It became common. It became a habit. People don't want to hold that smelly money anymore now, right? They just want to do scanning, whatever. You still now you start to see very hard to find small changes.
Yep.
The reality, right? So, having said that, how can that happen, right? So that's the question, right? How can that happen, right? One, I think there has to be a lot of people or a lot of companies who are shouting out, doing a lot of testing, but in the end there will be consolidation. So that's number one. Number two, you will have to have a proper regulatory to support the infrastructures, right? Number three, there has to be a lot of collaboration to build use cases. If you don't build that use cases, you cannot grow. If nobody wants to download one app just to have one function that he uses only once a year. Cannot, right? So I think once you have this three in, sooner or later, there'll be that that growth will pick up. So then I look at it now, I think in crypto industries or blockchain, it's probably at the 2011 of the e-commerce or the 2015 of the payment. Right? That's how I see it, last.
Yeah.
If you can think about it in all the financials, yeah, probably somewhere along all this democratizing the finance.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, so far it seems to be a little bit of a love-hate relationship with crypto in Indonesia. It's obviously it's growing fast, but regulators aren't quite sure yet how to deal with it. How do you see crypto fitting into the financial landscape in the short or medium term?
I mean, if I reflect on the overseas, right, how they actually do it, crypto can be used as a payment. Crypto can be used as an ETF, which is basically is part of your mutual funds. So if let's say your mutual funds buy shares and then obligations, they can also buy crypto, right, as part of the whole product under that ETF, right? And then you can do a tokenization in the real world assets. So that's another thing that I think people are trying to push. So again, I think there are many use cases, I think, but the question really now, like what you're saying, right? So this is where the players, the industry player, together with the regulatory, has to be able to shape the industries, right, on what is right, what is wrong, make sure the consumer is protected. There's no hanky-panky, you know. And that's probably the tough part, right? Because this is like security versus tediousness. So the more we want things to be more secure, the more approval layer, the more bureaucratic, the more tedious it is, right? And vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not clear yet whether things are heading in the direction of DeFi or DeFi, tokenization, cross-border payments, maybe something else. I think that's going to become apparent over the next 5 years or so when we really see those use cases, as you rightly pointed out. Yeah,
agree.
Yeah. Look, it's been quite amazing. Just listening to you listening to you sharing these stories, Johnny. It's been a journey for sure, and I'm curious though, if you could go back in time, let's say, and talk to fresh graduate Johnny Widodo and tell him that he'd become a fintech CEO, a startup mentor, and a strongman competitor, would he have believed you, or would he have maybe called security?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think I will not believe where I am now. You know, actually, even like last year, I went for a holiday to Europe, end of the year. I rented a BMW there and then drive for 3 weeks, do a road trip, right, across from Paris to Monaco, right, and then going back to Paris. In my heart, I tell myself, right, I say, this is something that I don't even dare to dream on, that I will be able to do this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask, the answer is I will not believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a big focus of the podcast, Johnny, as well as talking about current trends that are relevant to someone's industry and expertise, is what we're really trying to do is build a bridge for young aspirational Indonesians that maybe don't have the guidance from family because they're first generation university students, perhaps. Maybe they don't have access to mentors, but they are ambitious. They want to contribute to the future of Indonesia. So I want to frame a question in this way. So if you were talking to a 20-year-old Johnny and giving a 20-year-old Johnny career advice, what's the one thing that you'd say, and maybe the one thing that you tell him to completely ignore?
You know, the example that you just gave me is exactly where I was 20 over years back. That's where you're ambitious, you don't have access, you don't have a mentor, you don't know what to do and all that, right? So, I mean, but again, I guess I'm lucky enough that I'm able to path my way to where I am now, I would say. So if you say, what would I tell my 20 years old what to do and what to ignore, right? I think number one, you can talk to a lot of people. You can listen to your parents. You can listen to your relatives, your friends. You see whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, you decide yourself because you live your life. Your parents, say for example, you are 25, right? Your parents 50. Say your parents pass away at 75, right? You are still 50, you know. If you pass away at 75, then you have 50 years more to go. Your parents only have 25 years with you. So, you lead your life. You write your own chapter. You just have to believe on what you need to do, and listening to all these people that you trust may not be correct, but at least gives you inputs on what to do next, right? And don't need to set very much long goal, like, oh, I want to be like this, I want to be like that for very long. But take one step at a time and see where things move, right? Because you will see different type of people at different stage of your life, and your thinking at different stage of your life would be very different also. So let me give one example, right? When I was doing my master's, no, actually, when I was doing my bachelor degree, I look at one guy who is a PhD holder, like a professor, then I say, I want to be a professor. And then really, I really enrolled in the PhD program. I'm aiming to be a professor. Then I realized that, hey, shit, you know, after 1 year, then I like, oh, this is not what I want to do, right? And then kind of fast forward, then I start to work. Then I look at my managers, my director. My director is also coincidentally was Indonesian back then, yeah, in the semiconductor industry, and he shared the same name with me, John. Yeah. His name is John Sidijono, right? So, and he became a director before 40, right? And he has a PhD also. And I was like, wow, this is what I want, right? I want to be a director before I became 40, right? Then I start to ask again, oh, should I want to be a director in the semiconductor before 40? Oh, the answer is no. Then I don't want. Then I get out. again, right? Then after that, oh, I have to go to a consulting because that's where the path that I want to be. I don't have any experience in consulting. I don't even know how to write a proper resume, right? How I do it, try to get connected with people. Then I say, I don't know the people in consulting. That's okay. I can talk to you, for example, and then you probably will introduce me to somebody from the consulting, right? And then and this is the reality, right? That's what happened. And then talk to them and very, again, humbling yourself and honest, right? And ask like, this is where I am. What is the expected traits to be a consultant?
Yeah, yeah.
So same thing. So that's exactly what I'm going to say to my young 20s, right? Say, yes, just look at who your mentor at different stages of your life. Take one step at a time and just close that gap.
Yeah.
And you can ignore other people, right? Other people that they're not responsible to your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a great point there as well, and you know how you were looking up to people ahead of you in terms of lifetime and career success and development. Let's say in 20 years' time, let's look to the future. What do you hope people say about you? That you built great businesses, that you revolutionized X, Y, or Z, that you had the best biceps in business in Indonesia. What do you want your legacy to be, Johnny?
So I think I want to at least people remember me as somebody who is giving back to the students. Somebody who built something and give back lah, basically lah. Creating impact to the youngest one.
Understood. And I guess, look, as a final question, Johnny, if we were to try and summarize this extensive career that you've had in one or two sentences, how would you describe it?
I would say life is a roller coaster, man. So when you are high up there, right? Don't be overjoyed. Don't how would I put it? Don't be overly happy, because and then when you are down there, again, don't be overly sad, you know. It's just moving, right? So yeah, you whatever situation you are, whatever that you are aiming and you're chasing, time will pass, right? And then you will move to another stage. You just have to make sure that you know what to do and continue growing from there, and be disciplined and committed.
All right. That was Johnny Widodo, CEO, FinTech boss, strongman, and guy who somehow makes a LinkedIn flex sound interesting. We've covered career pivots, FinTech, crypto, and how deadlifting helps you survive board meetings. Basically, life advice you didn't know you needed. So if you've enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, drop a review, and send this episode to that one friend who keeps talking about quitting their job, but is too scared to do it. Maybe this will push them over the edge. That's it for today. Thank you so much, Johnny. Everybody else, I'll catch you next time on Career Candour.
Thank you, Lee.